The best things in life are always worth the wait. This is the lesson our main protagonist learns as she takes a look at her life after an unexpected breakup. Fiona is a well-established real estate broker in New York. She is smart, determined, and a go-getter, 3 characteristics needed in her very competitive field. She has always found comfort in its busy streets and fast-paced living. She is in a relationship with Nate, which she considers a dream come true. However, due to her busy and demanding work, there are many times she takes her boyfriend for granted. Just like now, she's supposed to meet Nate, but she gets a call from her secretary telling her to deal with an urgent matter. By the time Fiona is done with her business and makes time to meet Nate at a bar, he has had enough. He tells her that lately, she makes him feel like just another box on her checklist. Despite Fiona's promises of making it up to him, Nate has already decided. He breaks up with her. The next day, Fiona calls her best friend Angela to tell her about the breakup. She admits she's still in shock. She says she and Nate had something magical between them, and she used to think they were destined to be together. Now, she doesn't know what to think about it. Angela suggests they meet so they can talk about it over dessert, but Fiona declines due to an upcoming meeting. Before ending the call, Angela advises her to make time, so she can feel her emotions and avoid feeling overwhelmed. After the call, Erwin Landheim arrives. He's a finance mogul who has just completed a merger with Fiona's business recently. He and Fiona's father used to be rivals in the field, up until the latter's moved to Vermont. So, naturally, Erwin knows Fiona and her capabilities in the profession. Erwin is there to offer her a managerial position in the real estate branch of his banking business. His offer is great, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that Fiona will never get elsewhere. She'll be at the top of her field, and she'll get to do what she loves, exploring and staying in the city. Erwin gives her some time to think about the offer, but not for long. 3 weeks later, Fiona finally meets up with Angela. Fiona recounts that it's been 22 days and 13 hours since her breakup with Nate. But who's counting? This shows she's still pining for her ex. She really thought Nate was the one. After all of her failed relationships, Angela smiles empathetically. She advises her friend to learn to slow down so she can process her feelings, or else she'll get stuck in that obsessive mode. She says that perhaps, to help Fiona move on, she needs a new perspective. Angela herself says she needs to get away for a while, so she suggests they go to Vermont and stay at the inn that Fiona's father manages. At first, Fiona doesn't agree, because she has some issues with her father and her stepmother. But after looking around and seeing couples everywhere that remind her of Nate, she realizes the idea may not be that bad. And so, the 2 friends drive to Vermont. It's already springtime, but the grounds are still covered with a blanket of snow. They arrive at the inn which, set against the background of cool blue sky, gives off a quaint but rustic charm. There's almost no service there, but Angela gets lucky to receive a call. She takes it, leaving Fiona silently whining about the cold and the lack of cell service, and wishing she was back in Manhattan. She spots a man not far away, collecting firewood. When she looks down, she sees several large objects that look gross. She kicks them away. The man, seeing her kicking his beloved oyster mushrooms, rushes to apprehend her. He explains that these mushrooms are very valuable ingredients. But now that she's kicked them, perhaps mushroom soup will be taken off the menu for tonight's dinner. Fiona is confused as she looks at the man walking away. But she soon forgets him at the sight of Brandon, her brother. He used to live in the city, too, until he decided to come here and help their father manage the inn. Brandon, Fiona, and Angela are childhood friends. They enter the inn where Delia, Fiona's stepmother, warmly greets them. She doesn't seem upset, like Fiona said, but rather she's delighted to see her again. Delia tells them she's glad that they're home. Fiona cringes at the word, home. Just then, her father Harris arrives carrying a large basket of laundry. He also warmly welcomes Fiona and says he's glad she's home. Again, Fiona cringes. It seems like she has some objection to calling the beautiful in her home. She doesn't have any concerns with her stepmother, but it's clear that she's awkward with her father. Harris spots the man from earlier and introduces him as Derek. He's the head chef of the inn, a prodigy in culinary arts, as Harris says. But Fiona can't get over how eccentric Derek seems, given their first meeting earlier. Harris explains to her that Derek needs to focus that week. They are holding a small dinner for food bloggers, in lieu of the town's upcoming Maple Fair. This dinner is meant to boost the inn's social media because, unfortunately, bookings have become scarce. With Derek's culinary talents, Harris is hoping to attract a more diverse clientele. Delia gets Fiona's attention and urges her to unpack and simply unwind. Fiona sleeps well in her room, but the next day, she gets awakened not by her alarm, but by the sound of roosters crowing and wood chopping. She opens the window and finds Derek. She reminds him that 6 is a little too early for chopping wood. He shouts back that it's a good time, since they need the wood for the smoked salmon intended for dinner. Then he calls Fiona a New York princess, in an undertone. Fiona doesn't hear this, but she calls Derek the Vermont lumberjack, in an undertone as well. Instead of going back to sleep, Fiona gets ready for her morning jog. When she comes down to the kitchen, she finds Derek there. They have another clash over breakfast cinnamon and coffee. Fiona finds them delicious, but she won't admit it in front of him. She then goes out for her morning jog, intending to find spots for better cell reception. Along the way she meets Chauncey, the owner of the field next to the inn. Fiona greets him, but all she gets is a cold stare that can rival the surrounding snow. She shrugs and goes on her way. For the third time that morning, she meets Derek. He comes out of the hen house and is about to walk towards the greenhouse when he spots her. They bicker again, with Derek teasing her about her breakup. He says staff gossip is unavoidable in the inn. Fiona fires back that perhaps that's because they have nothing to do there. He confidently contradicts her, saying that growing herbs is a lot more fun than one assumes. He proudly says that everything he uses in the kitchen is locally sourced, either from his greenhouse or bought from local farmers. However, sometimes he can't get the vegetables he needs. His solution to this is to buy the piece of land that their neighbor, Chauncey, has put up for sale. The only hitch is that Chauncey refuses to sell it to him. Fiona thinks the reason is because Derek is generally not a nice guy. Fiona continues to explore the other parts of the property. She walks into the barn, where she sees her father arranging hay blocks. She teases him about how far different he is from his previous job, as a finance expert who works on Wall Street. Harris says he's happy here, and he wouldn't want it any other way. Then he hints that Fiona could be happy there as well. Fiona says she was happy back in their old house at Central Park. It seems like Fiona's issue with her father is that he sold their old house without considering her feelings. It sounds superficial at first, but there may be a deeper meaning behind Fiona's hard feelings. She wants to open up and talk about it, but Harris keeps dodging the conversation. The father and daughter return to the inn, where guests have started to arrive. Fiona notices that many of them are couples, which only reminds her of Nate and how she misses him. So she urges Angela to come with her and visit the center for the Maple Fair. The barn where the fair is set up is busy with guests enjoying their time. Many booths have been put up to either showcase the town's strengths or give people the chance to play parlor games. Fiona sees Derek again, cooking scallops in front of a small audience. They have another round of bickering before Fiona walks away. She's annoyed that the man always has an answer to everything. They walk past a darts booth. Perhaps she can relieve her annoyance by shooting some darts. Just as she shoots, she hears a very familiar voice. When she turns around, she finds Nate. Fiona is excited and hopeful, thinking that her ex is there to woo her and get back together. To her utter dismay, Nate is not there to rekindle their old flame, but to show off his new girlfriend, Haley. To make things worse, the new couple is staying at Fiona's father's inn, and Delia knows Haley through a friend. Everyone looks awkward as they make the connections, and Haley has just realized that Fiona is Nate's ex. Nate is apologetic about their situation, saying he genuinely didn't know that the inn they're staying at is owned by Fiona's father. He even offers that they transfer to another inn. But Delia says that's impossible since this is the peak of the season, and they won't find another vacant place to stay. To save face, Fiona tells Nate that it's fine if he and Haley stay. It's no problem because, after all, she's also seeing someone else. She casts her eyes around and her sight lands on Derek, innocent of what's happening. She keeps spinning her lies, while Angela and Delia nod awkwardly in support. Later at the inn, however, Fiona starts to pack her things. She realizes she can't stay there any longer if she's going to witness her ex moving on from their relationship. Her plan to quietly leave the place gets ruined when Nate finds her with her suitcases. He apologizes again for the seemingly ill timing of his presence there and his new relationship. Fiona points this out, remarking how fast he met someone after their breakup. Nate returns this comment to her and mentions her romance with Derek. The two ex-lovers look uncomfortable with the fact that each of them has found someone new. But it's clear that Fiona is still pining for him. Nate says Haley is waiting for him, so he leaves Fiona there. Someone calls her name. When she looks around, Derek is standing nearby. He overheard the conversation. Fiona has no choice but to explain her situation. It's not fair that Nate is already dating someone else when she has only just started to move on. Plus, she's sure the spark is still there between them. Derek calls her delusional and comments that Nate isn't a gentleman for finding a rebound that fast. Fiona decides that her dignity is more important, so she begs Derek to be her pretend boyfriend for a week. He refuses. He has a lot on his plate for that week. Besides, there's nothing in it for him. She recalls the piece of land he wants to buy from Chauncey. Fiona uses this to make a deal. If Derek pretends to be her boyfriend for the week, she'll help him convince Chauncey to sell his land to him. At first, Derek is not convinced, but he can see the confidence in her eyes. After all, she's the best real estate agent in New York. He finally agrees as they shake hands on their deal. The next day is the start of their operation, Make Nate Jealous. Fiona learns from her father that Nate and Haley have left the inn for their morning stroll. So Fiona goes to the kitchen and demands Derek to come with her. He protests, since no one's going to do the dishes, but she insists. And so, Fiona and Derek reluctantly go out to follow the other couple. Soon it becomes apparent that her boots are not suited for the slippery snow-covered ground compared to his duck boots. On their way, her foot gets stuck in a puddle of mud. Derek lifts her in an attempt to help, but they just end up bickering. That's how Nate and Haley see them as they return from their stroll. Fiona and Derek immediately pretend that everything's fine. Small talk is unavoidable, so Haley asks them how they met. Through awkward pauses and uncomfortable ums and airs, Fiona and Derek weave a story of bumping into each other, which, thankfully, is partially true. They continue to show exaggerated affection for each other, which makes the other couple a bit uneasy. Fortunately, they don't suspect anything, and they go on their way. Fiona and Derek return to the inn to clean themselves up. Because he enjoys teasing Fiona, Derek invites her to go to the fair, saying that she can't hide from Nate all day. She grudgingly obliges. The barn is busy again, with new activities set up for the day. Fiona and Derek spot Nate and Haley all lovey-dovey while sharing a candied apple. Of course, Fiona won't lose, so she urges Derek to do something as well. The latter grabs a cotton candy, and the two put up a sweet show which successfully grabs Nate's attention. Fiona sees this and considers this as a win. In her mind, if she continues making her ex jealous, then Nate will come back to her. At the center of the barn lays a long table for that day's contest, the fastest one to eat the most pancakes. Fiona spots her ex joining, so she goads her pretend boyfriend to join too. But Derek is a cultured chef. He would rather be slow and savor the pancakes than gobble them down his throat. Impatient, Fiona takes over and unleashes her hidden strength. Derek is mesmerized and can only offer syrup as help. In the end, they get disqualified because Fiona failed to register, making their efforts void. They bicker again, and she notices Nate looking at them. She orders Derek to do something. The latter attempts to kiss her, but she cringes away. Feeling that things are going nowhere, Fiona leaves the barn. Outside, she meets Chauncey with his cow. She introduces herself and gets straight to the point by asking about the property he's selling. Chauncey is as stoic and indifferent as the first time she met him. He says he won't sell the property to Derek. Not now, not ever. Later, Fiona and Derek are driving on a trail through the forest when he stops the truck. He says he needs to do something, and wants her to experience it too. He has noticed that she's always on her phone trying to do some work, and she tends to demand things at a faster pace. He tells her that the best things are always worth the wait, and what they're about to do will prove his point. He gives her her own pair of duck boots, and a few moments later they enter the forest. After walking for a few minutes, they arrive in front of a maple tree planted among the evergreens. Derek relays that this specific tree was planted by his grandfather. When it reached its maturity, his grandmother helped his grandfather with tree tapping, or the process of extracting syrup from the tree trunk. Tree tapping has become a tradition in his family, with his parents continuing it, and now him carrying it on. Fiona listens to him with awe. He says he likes to be part of a tradition. Thus, he understands that things can take a certain time before they can be enjoyed. He takes pleasure in the process of making things. Fiona realizes this is exhibited in his cuisine. Her initial annoyance towards him evaporates. She understands now that he cares about his work, something that she really appreciates in a person. After he's done drilling a hole into the trunk, Derek inserts a small wooden faucet, and then positions the bucket underneath to catch the dripping syrup. However, Fiona is surprised that nothing is coming out of it. Derek patiently explains that it takes a couple of days before a bucket of syrup can be harvested. That's the beauty of waiting, he says, because at the end of it, one can enjoy the sweet results of hard labor. She smiles and comments about his passion for food and cooking. He smiles as he warmly remembers the recipes he inherited from his grandmother. Every time he cooks something from his grandma's recipes, he remembers the fond memories of his past. At this point, Fiona feels a little envy. She can't relate to the remembering part, or the fond memories. Her past still sticks to her present. As they walk back to the truck, Fiona acknowledges their rough start. They got off on the wrong foot, so she apologizes for her attitude back then. She explains that she was under stress from her work and her breakup, besides her issue with her father. She wasn't in her best form. Derek understands, although he asks why Nate broke up with her. She admits Nate got tired of trying to fit in with her busy schedule. Derek advises her that if she really wants Nate back, she should learn to slow down and appreciate things in life. Then he remembers another event that may help Fiona with that. After cleaning up, they drive back to town and head to a quaint coffee and tea shop. Derek says they are holding the annual maple syrup tasting there, and he wants Fiona to at least give it a try. When Nate and Haley also enter the premises, Derek reminds Fiona to stay in character. It looks like too much of a coincidence that the two couples find themselves in the same place, unlike earlier. As usual, each couple boasts of their romantic activities, always implying that theirs is better than the other. Now that they're there for the maple tasting, Derek issues the challenge on who can guess the different syrup variants. Nate says he's excellent with wine tasting, but he has Haley, who's excited to do it. And with that, each couple sits on their own table, which is laden with different jars of syrup. At first, Fiona wants to observe Nate and Haley for any holes in their relationship. After all, Derek knows about syrups and can win this game. But Derek won't allow her to spend the time staring at her ex. Instead, he wants her to forget Nate for a moment and focus on the task at hand. Fiona grudgingly relents. Surprisingly, she's good at identifying the characteristics of each syrup. She remembers what Derek told her earlier about them, so she applies them in differentiating the products. In addition, she doesn't notice that Nate is a little bit upset that she's not staring at him, until Derek points it out. She feels better about herself. In the end, she and Derek win the maple tasting contest. They receive their prize-exclusive tickets to the maple dance. Nate and Haley come out of the shop and congratulate them. He tells them they're off to a sunset stroll, then they leave. Fiona scoffs at the veiled competitiveness that her ex is showing. But for the first time, she doesn't feel depressed. It's true, though, that she still wants to see him seething and jealous. Derek enjoys that their tactics are working. Understanding the assignment, he invites Fiona to dinner that night and see what her ex's reaction will be. This time, she wholeheartedly says yes. That afternoon, she pays Chauncey a visit. She finds him on the same spot as she did the first time she met him. She notices the non-existent fence he's fixing, and remarks that good fences mean good neighbors. Then, she tells him she wants to put forward Derek's offer in buying his land. But Chauncey isn't relenting, and he finally shares the reason why he won't sell. He thinks Derek is just another fancy chef who would use his land to make pretentious cuisine and feed pretentious people. He'd rather his land be used in preserving the traditions and charm of Vermont. To that, Fiona has nothing to say, but she mulls over it. Later that night, Fiona meets Angela, whom she hasn't seen that day. It turns out Angela helped Brandon in handing out flyers for the food bloggers' dinner. It's an important event, and they need as much advertisement as possible to keep the inn relevant. Just then, Delia approaches them and says their seating arrangement has been changed. Angela and Brandon will be sitting near the fireplace, while Fiona and Derek will sit where Derek can have a full view of the kitchen. This is the first time he's letting his sous chef take the reins, so he needs to be alert in case he's needed in the kitchen. When Nate and Haley arrive and are seated near them, Fiona reminds Derek to keep his eyes on her instead of the kitchen. Derek realizes this and teases her, saying she also needs to keep her eyes on him and not Nate, if they need this fake relationship to go on. Fiona laughs. She says she understands how Derek loves it in the kitchen, where he can boss everyone about with his perfectionism. Derek corrects her. For him, food is not about perfection, but love and family and tradition. He gets a little awkward when he says the word love as he looks at Fiona, so he quickly changes the subject. He notices that Nate can't concentrate on his date. Indeed, the man keeps on looking at Fiona and Derek, who seem to be having a good time. Understandably, Haley is upset. On the other hand, Fiona's full attention is on Derek, especially now that he is listening intently on her story about her issue with her father. She starts her tale with her mother's vivacious personality when she was alive. According to Fiona, her mother loved the city, and she definitely took after her. But when she passed away, their family dynamics changed. Her father sold their house in Central Park without telling them, and chose to live here in Vermont. To Fiona, it seemed like Harris never properly mourned his wife, and was callous to his children's feelings, especially Fiona's. The main reason why she chose to stay and live in the city is to keep her mother's memories alive. Through the years, the city noise and its urban environment has become her comfort zone, her safe space. It's only now that she's recognizing she's not ready to let go of her past. Since then, she and her father have never been the same. Although she's the one reaching out to him, now that she's here, she wants to have a heart-to-heart talk with him. But her father is not yet prepared for the conversation. Their solemn talk gets interrupted when they hear a crash from the kitchen. Fiona urges Derek to go and check, but he chooses to stay and spend the rest of the dinner with her. The next day, Fiona puts into motion her plan to woo Chauncey, recruiting Derek, Angela, and Brandon. Her aim is to fix the fence that marks the separation of their properties. If Chauncey sees that the inn is a good neighbor to his fields, then it may sway his mind about selling his property to Derek. After their hard work, Fiona and Derek walk back to the inn. They are both hopeful that Chauncey will appreciate the newly built fence. On their way, they meet Nate. He's dressed up for the dance that night, and he's waiting for his girlfriend. Automatically, Fiona and Derek put their hands around each other. But this time their gestures seem more natural, unlike before, when even their conversations sound forced. This bothers Nate more than he admits. He wants to talk to Fiona, but just then Haley arrives. Fiona says she'll see them at the dance that night. Fiona and Angela prepare for the dance. Delia comes in a few minutes later to give Fiona an heirloom. It's a pearl necklace she inherited from her mother. It's such a sentimental gift, meant to let Fiona know that she'll love her like her own daughter. Fiona is grateful. She really doesn't have any grudge against Delia as her stepmother. She hugs her to show her appreciation. Then, the three of them come down to await their rides to the dance. Fiona's comes in as a shock. Derek arrives in a phaeton, which makes him look like a modern, handsome prince. What else can Fiona do but take everything in and enjoy it while it lasts? They arrive at the party, which is only attended by a few. Derek asks Fiona for a dance, which she accepts with a smile. Of course, this is all a pretense for their fake relationship and to make Nate jealous. But both Fiona and Derek know things have changed between them, even if they don't admit it yet. Meanwhile, Nate looks over them and can't believe the genuine loving stares between his ex and the chef. At first he thought it was all an act, but things seem to have progressed. His jealous looks are not lost on Haley. She pulls Nate aside and confronts him. It's understandable that she feels this is unfair, when it's clear Nate still has feelings for Fiona. On the other hand, Fiona and Derek couldn't care less about anyone as they are wrapped up in their own world. Although they don't explicitly voice their feelings, they have an understanding that they both feel the same way. They are about to kiss when someone taps Derek to handle an emergency. Fiona decides to get a drink when Nate approaches her. He tells her they have both rebounded, but they end up still having feelings for each other. He also informs her that Haley has left for New York after realizing things won't work out with Nate. And so, he proposes to Fiona that they should get back together. But she dodges the proposal, saying she wants to go home. On their way back, Derek tells her he saw Nate holding her hands, and he takes it that they've gotten back together. He says he's happy for her, though he doesn't look like it. Soon she'll go back to the city, and he'll stay here living his simple farm life, just as how it's supposed to be for them. But Fiona is not willing to go, not when she still needs to hold her end of their bargain. She is determined to convince Chauncey to sell his land to Derek. As they arrive at the inn, Fiona is surprised to see Erwin Landheim there. Apparently, he's intent to make her accept the promotion he's giving her. He invites her to a late dinner to discuss the contract. The next day, Fiona goes on her morning walk. Usually she clears her mind around this time, but so many things have happened lately that have been weighing on her. As she walks along the path, she happens to see Chauncey feeding his cow. Initially, he didn't like that Fiona and others went out of their way just to fix a fence, but he eventually changes his mind. Thinking it's her last chance, Fiona gives him a flyer about the dinner that will happen that night. She tells him that she'll be grateful if he at least gives it a chance to see what Derek is capable of as a chef. Fiona returns to the inn, where she finds Delia setting up the tables. There, Fiona lets out her worries that have been bogging her mind. She says she has accepted the job that Erwin has proposed, and she's supposed to prepare for her journey back to New York. There's also the fact that Nate wants to get back with her. These are the things she has wanted and has worked hard for. But now, she doesn't seem to know what she really wants. Her stay there in Vermont, taking her time to really see things and allowing herself to breathe, and of course spending time with Derek, have all changed her perspective. Delia advises her to never rush her decisions, and to look in her heart to know what's best for her. Their emotional talk gets interrupted when Harris walks in on them and tells them there's a problem. A truck has been jackknifed in a nearby town, causing all the roads to be closed. This means nothing's getting through, including half of Derek's ingredients for the dinner that night, and his hired staff. It looks like the only way is to cancel the dinner. But Harris refuses to cancel. There must be something they can do to salvage the event. Fiona overhears the conversation, and she can't help but butt in. The dinner won't be canceled, she says. Between Derek, who is good with details, and her, who's good with speed, anything can be possible. With the help of Harris, Delia, Angela, and Brandon, surely they can make something. Instead of sticking with a prepared menu, she proposes that Derek should use his family's recipes. Grateful for Fiona's help and excellent suggestion, Derek finds renewed strength to continue. Throughout the afternoon, they work tirelessly to make sure the dinner will push through. Derek effectively delegates the tasks, which the others easily follow. In 2 hours, they've managed to cook family recipes and present them as meals for fine dining. Their guests arrive, with Delia showing them their tables. To Derek's surprise, he learns that Chauncey is also attending. This prompts Fiona to explain what she did earlier. In the end, they manage to make it through the dinner, with glowing reviews from their guests. And the best part is, Chauncey finally talks to Derek, agreeing to sell his land to him. After eating the delicious meal, he has realized that Derek can be trusted in keeping traditions alive, and not making any pretenses for the sake of fame or money. He expects to meet him tomorrow to finalize the sale. Another important decision that night involves Fiona's relationship with Nate. With her accepting the new job, it's only fair to let Nate go. She explains to him that she's cleared her head, and has realized they should both move on. The next day, Fiona is all set to return to New York. Angela has decided to stay a little longer to get close to Brandon. To this, Fiona smiles and offers her support. She wants to say goodbye to Derek, but the latter has already gone to Chauncey to finalize the sale of the land. So, Fiona looks for her father. She finds him near the barn, feeding the horses. She hugs her father as she says her goodbyes. She also invites him and Delia to come visit her in the city, even if he doesn't like it there. Harris is confused. It dawns on him that after all these years, his daughter thought he went to Vermont to escape his wife's passing. And this is far from the truth. He finally reveals to Fiona that moving to Vermont was originally her mother's idea. It was even her who found the property. As it turns out, Harris's way of moving on is to honor his wife's last wish. That is, to develop this place so their family can have a place to stay away from the city. This doesn't seem to make sense, because Fiona always thought her mother loved the city. To this, Harris says that her mother loved it because they were there. He explains that her mother was always happy as long as she was with her family, because she valued her family so much. Harris's only fault is that he should have supported his wife sooner, and that he wasn't used to dealing with emotions. Fiona finally understands everything. This allows her to let go of the heavy feeling she's always had regarding her father and her mother's passing. She asks how he knew that moving here was the right decision. Harris says it's all about intuition, and as it happens, his intuition has paid off so satisfyingly. With this conversation, it looks like Fiona has cleared her head, and now knows what she really wants. After looking for Derek, she finds him checking the bucket they left by the maple tree. He's surprised to know she hasn't left yet. Fiona tells him her new perspective after staying at the inn for a couple of days. At first, she thought she liked building cities. That's why she got into real estate in the first place. But now, she thinks that preservation is as important, if not more. People and memories can make a place truly special. So, she wants to give herself a chance by staying there and helping her father manage the inn, to preserve her mother's memories. She also tells him she has let Nate go. Derek is happy, because the woman he loves is finally there to stay. Even without saying anything, they know they have something special between them. They express their feelings through a kiss. That night, Derek prepares the syrup he just harvested and shares it with Fiona. It's true that good things are worth the wait, but they are sweeter when shared with a loved one.